You're listening to the Ask Ava podcast, where we give real answers to real questions from teens and young adults about relationships, consent, dating violence, and more. My name is Jessica Spoltetti. I'm an outreach and prevention manager at Safe+Sound Somerset. We are in Somerset County, New Jersey, and we're the lead organization for domestic and sexual violence services and prevention. And we have free services for children, teens, and adults who witness or experience violence. So today's question is, Dear Ava, should I watch adult content so I know what partners expect of me? And today we're joined by Safe+Sound Somerset Director of Outreach and Prevention, Joelle Piercy. Hi, Joelle.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So this is a question we heard recently in a middle school. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, should people watch adult content and what that might look like?
Mhm. So there's a lot I think we want to say about this, but let's start out with the fact that you never have to do anything you don't want to do just because other people may expect it, right? You don't have to watch something you don't want to watch. You don't have to do something you don't want to do, right? You never owe anything to anyone that you're in a relationship with.
Totally. I think that goes for so many things. So thank you for saying that right away. I also think before we get into this discussion more, we want to say, when we talk about adult content, we're talking about pornography or porn. And we also want to say that, adult content is made for adults. So something to keep in mind when you hear, other teens talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And even though it's only for adults, we're finding that young people have just really easy access to it, right? It's just a few clicks away usually online. And there's different types of websites now, right? You've got the adult films and you have like the fans only sites. So young people are coming across this in a lot of different ways right now. And it can be hard when you feel like it changes what's expected in a relationship.
Yeah, and I think also when we're talking about this too, just remember, if a partner is expecting something from you sexually, just be aware too that both partners need to be of age. The age of consent changes depending on the relationship and in what state you're in. So make sure that you and your partner know the laws about that as well. But getting back to actual adult content. So Joelle, what are some things that, are possibly different in adult content than what we might see in real life when it comes to sex?
Right, absolutely. And one thing I think you just have to think about for this whole conversation is that adult content is not sex education, right? It is not meant to teach you the truth. It is meant for the makers of it to get money, right? To make money, to get likes and follows and watches, right? It's meant to be shocking, right? It's not meant to tell you the truth. And so what you're seeing is not the truth. You're not seeing reality. Something that's different is that, a lot of times it's not showing the average person, right? It's usually only different types of extremes, maybe body sizes, in terms of ages. You're not seeing average people in this content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that could change the way people think about sex and about their expectations when it comes to a relationship or a partner. And that could also be really harmful to both people, right? To only think that, we always say like young, beautiful people, right, is a lot of what is in media. And a lot of that is also in adult content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It can change the idea of kind of what we think other people want of our bodies, right? And really when you're in that relationship, it's valuing each other, right? And establishing what you're both comfortable with. And there's also keeping in mind again kind of the purpose of it. It's not to teach the truth, right? It's to get views, right, from adults. It's to get views, but you're also looking at who is it usually for. It usually tries to cater to the audience who watches it the most. And is that right, representative of what you want in your relationship? Is that representative of what your partner wants in the relationship? Right, it's not, it gives this idea that there's one type of thing that's wanted by everybody, and that's not always the case. And I would add that to say that's not usually the case.
Yeah, you're making me think about how a lot of adult content could make someone have those unrealistic expectations. And I think that's what you're saying already. But we have to also remember that, nobody's entitled to anything. Whether you're in a relationship or not, whether you're with this person or not, whatever that looks like, nobody's entitled to your body. Nobody's entitled to make decisions for you. Nobody's entitled to pressure you into having sex or doing any kind of sexual activity, right? It has to be 100% consensual. And we'll talk about that, I think, in a couple minutes. But I think there's an idea when we see adult content that, oh, this is the way it has to be. I deserve to have a partner. I deserve sex. I deserve, certain things. And that's just not reality, and it's harmful. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said, right? Those false expectations, like, unrealistic expectations. It's also very heavily edited, right? So it's not showing what's really happened. It's showing a highly edited version of it. There's cuts, there's airbrushing, right? All these different manipulations. There's special lighting, so people don't look like that. They don't move like that in reality. And we're keeping in mind that it is in fact fake. It's not just a fantasy, right? It also is quite literally fake.
So, yeah, and I think we wanted to talk a little bit about consent when it comes to that, because one thing you'll notice in a lot of TV and movies in general and adult content is that you're not hearing a conversation or a continued conversation about consent or permission. And that's part of the legal agreement to have sex, right, with somebody. It's part of, being safe. And so Joelle, can you talk a little bit about, consent when it comes to the difference between adult content and real life?
Definitely. So again, remember, a lot of times in adult content, you're not going to be seeing those examples of how they talk about it, how they ask, right? So there's this expectation that it creates this expectation that that's not part of that process, right? But it really does need to be every single time, every single action you engage in. We had someone who's younger that said, well, I said yes, but I didn't really know what I was saying yes to, right? And that's not real consent, right? That's kind of like this idea of the adult content where they edit out all of those discussions along the way, right? That's that fakeness of it. That's that fantasy of it. And right, so it's really every step of the way. So when we're thinking about consent, we like to use the word fries, right? So freely given, so not manipulated, pressured, threatened, guilt tripped into saying yes or no. So things like not saying, oh, if you loved me enough, if we've been together long enough, you're leading me on, you said last time. Pressure or like even sometimes physical threats. All of those would take away someone's ability to freely say yes or no, right? And really set your own boundaries there. It needs to be reversible. So you have to be able to change your mind at any time, even in the middle of something happening. You need to be able to say no and expect that person will listen. If not, that goes from consensual to assault, right? Right. When they say no and that's not respected. It needs to be informed. So no tricks, what exactly are they agreeing to? It needs to be everyone's on board, everyone's on the same page, right? Everyone knows what's happening and is in agreement to what's about to happen. And finally, specific. Each and every action needs to be consented to. Also, each and every time, each specific time. Just because one thing was okay one time doesn't mean it's going to be okay another time. And that's perfectly healthy and normal part of a relationship, that things change, and a healthy, respectful, or consensual relationship respects those changes in mind as well.
Totally. So I think what we're getting at here is that, there's a lot of differences between what you see in adult content and what real, legal, free, safe consent looks like in real life. So thank you for explaining the FRIES acronym. And I think people ask us sometimes, well, who can I go to if if I have questions? This is a really difficult topic to talk about sometimes, sexual health and wellness. Maybe you don't feel like you can talk to your parents. Maybe you don't feel like you can talk to someone in your life. Just know that you can go to a place like Planned Parenthood. There's clinics all over the country that support everything from birth control to discussions about sexual health to, pretty much anything related to that, right? Any kind of health care. And then you can also talk to your doctor. If you have a doctor, and again, if you're not comfortable around your parent, you could always ask the doctor to speak with you privately to talk about something, and that's perfectly okay. And of course, if your parent, if you trust your parent or your guardian, that's great too. But just know that, the answers are out there. The real healthy, accurate answers for sex ed are out there. They're not in adult content. Joelle, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up today's question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing in all that is go back to what the motives are, right? Are the motives to entertain or are they to inform, right? And that's where you want to look for that information. You're looking to turn to the people that really want to provide accurate information. And they're there to support you. And if you have questions about consent, about relationships, you can also access the Safe and Sound helpline as well.
Absolutely. And I think, if your partner does guilt you or pressure you into sexual activity, or you experience sexual assault, all those things go hand in hand, unfortunately, you can call our helpline at 866-685-1122. It's call or text. You don't need parental permission to call. So please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for being here today, Joelle.
Yeah, thanks for having me.